You know exactly who I'm talking about. The person who leaves you exhausted after every conversation. The one who calls only when they need something. The friend who makes every situation about themselves. The family member who knows exactly which buttons to push and pushes them anyway. You care about them. Or you used to. Or you feel like you should. But every interaction costs you something. Energy, peace, time, that takes hours or days to recover. The Stoics had a precise name for what's happening to you, and a framework for dealing with it that doesn't require you to become cold, or cut everyone off, or pretend you don't feel what you feel. We live in a culture that is deeply confused about relationships. On one side, the therapy-influenced idea that you should set boundaries, protect your energy, cut off anyone who doesn't serve your growth. On the other, the guilt-driven idea that real loyalty means being available to everyone, always, regardless of the cost to yourself. Both extremes fail in practice. The first produces isolation. The second produces depletion. And the research backs this up. Studies on social energy, the psychological resources we spend in social interactions, show that certain relationship patterns are genuinely depleting, not just uncomfortable. Chronic exposure to high drama, high need, or high conflict people activates your stress response in the same way that physical threats do. Your body cannot tell the difference between a lion and a person who makes you feel responsible for their emotional state. The question isn't whether some people drain you. They do, and that's not a character flaw in you or in them. The question is what to do about it without betraying your values or your relationships. The Stoics, people who navigated courts full of political enemies, friendships with exiles and prisoners, and family relationships under the pressure of empire, had answers that the modern conversation mostly misses. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in the Meditations that applies here with uncomfortable precision. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil. We've referenced this before, but there's a dimension of it we haven't explored. Marcus isn't describing enemies. He's describing everyone, including the people he loved, including himself on bad days. The Stoic starting point for draining relationships is not this person is toxic. It's this person is behaving from a place of confusion, fear, or unmet need, and their behavior is a symptom of that, not a verdict on me. This matters because it changes your internal experience of the interaction. When someone drains you and you interpret it as an attack, as something they're doing to you, you respond with defensiveness, resentment, or guilt, all of which cost you more energy than the original interaction. When you interpret it as a symptom, as something happening in them that you happen to be near, you can respond from a different place. Not coldness, clarity. The person who calls only when they need something is not doing it because they've calculated your worth and found it instrumental. They're doing it because that's the only relational pattern they know. The family member who pushes your buttons is not a strategist targeting your weaknesses. They're a person who learned that disruption gets them attention. Understanding the mechanism doesn't excuse the behavior. It gives you back your power to choose your response. Epictetus was blunt about something that the modern conversation about relationships tends to soften into vagueness. Not all relationships deserve the same investment. He wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The process is mutual." This is not elitism. It's ecology. The relationships that sustain you are the ones where something real is being exchanged. Growth, honesty, genuine care. The relationships that drain you are the ones where the exchange is broken down, where one person is consistently taking without returning, or where the dynamic has calcified into something neither person chose consciously. Epictetus's framework creates a quiet hierarchy, not of worth, but of investment. Tier 1. People who challenge and improve you, and for whom you do the same. These relationships get your best attention and most honest presence. Tier 2. People you care about who are going through something difficult. Temporary imbalance, real need. These relationships get your generosity, with awareness that the imbalance is temporary. Tier 3. People who are chronically draining, with no movement toward reciprocity. These relationships get your basic goodwill, you don't cut them off or treat them badly, but they do not get the same depth of investment as tiers 1 and 2. This isn't cruelty. It's the honest recognition that your time and energy are finite, and how you allocate them is one of the most important decisions you make, mostly without thinking about it. The Stoic move: make it conscious. Decide deliberately which tier each relationship belongs to, and allocate accordingly, without guilt, without drama, without announcement. Here's the most practical piece: what to actually do in the moment when a draining person is right in front of you. Seneca described a practice he called selective presence, the ability to be physically in a difficult social situation while maintaining psychological distance from its most draining elements. He wrote, "Retire into yourself as much as you can." This is not dissociation. It's not rudeness. It's a deliberate internal posture, a part of your attention that stays with you, observing the interaction rather than being fully submerged in it. Practically, it looks like this. Lower your emotional stakes in the interaction. Before you enter a conversation with someone who drains you, decide in advance. This conversation does not have the power to ruin my day. Not because you don't care, but because you've chosen in advance not to hand that power over. Stop trying to fix what you cannot fix. The most exhausting thing about draining relationships is the energy we spend trying to change the other person, to make them see, to help them grow, to get them to behave differently. Epictetus was ruthless about this. Other people's character is not up to you. You cannot reason someone out of a pattern they didn't reason themselves into. Stop spending energy there. Exit cleanly, without over-explaining. When you need to end an interaction, end it. You don't owe anyone a lengthy justification for protecting your time. Marcus Aurelius ended conversations with senators and advisors who were wasting his attention without apology or drama. Not because he didn't care, but because he understood that his attention was a resource and he was its guardian. The Stoic position on draining people is not avoidance. It's proportionality, giving each relationship what it actually warrants, no more, and protecting what remains for the things that deserve it. So let's go back to where we started. The person who leaves you exhausted after every conversation. The one who costs you something every time. The Stoics would tell you 3 things. First, their behavior is not about you. It's a symptom of something happening in them. Understanding that doesn't excuse it, but it removes the sting that makes it cost you twice. Second, not all relationships deserve the same investment. Deciding that consciously, quietly, without drama, is not cruelty. It's the honest use of a finite resource. Third, you can be in the room without being consumed by it. Lower the emotional stakes before you walk in. Stop trying to fix what you cannot fix. Exit when you need to, without apology. Marcus Aurelius dealt with people who were actively trying to undermine him, every single day, and wrote in his private journal about doing it with equanimity. Not because he didn't feel it, because he decided before the interaction started where his peace lived, and it wasn't in their hands. Yours doesn't have to be either. If this gave you something useful, subscribe. Every week, one problem that's costing people something real, and the ancient answer that still works. They had more time to think than we do. We might as well use it.